welcome to Are We the Only Ones? I'm Kathy, and today I'm going to talk about the epic level of corruption that we are seeing today. Trump was successfully able to negotiate a $1.5 billion slush fund for the J6 rioters and additional IRS immunity for his whole family. There will not be an audit of his own tax records or any of his family's tax records. And I don't know how they negotiated that, but that was the one thing that I thought we had, because that was the one way that they got Al Capone, was through the taxes. And I really thought that was going to be the way that we got him. But now that they've negotiated that, that means that our fail-safe is gone. Which also means that I think he essentially, for now, has won. And it is our duty as a democratic society to show up and protest in large numbers and demand resignation, demand accountability. So far, Pam Bondi is being charged with obstruction. That is the one silver lining in all of this. Obstruction of the Epstein files, and I don't know how far that's going to go because she could get pardoned. Who knows, right? If it's a state charge as opposed to a federal charge, then she can't get pardoned by the president. But for someone that we joke around as not being very intelligent, he maneuvered in a way from a legal strategy, from business, marketing, PR, even from a merchandising strategy. He was the dumb blonde that we've always said existed in women, right? The idea that like a dumb blonde as a woman could really be someone who is extremely intelligent but could play a dumb blonde and get away with everything. I think Donald Trump has figured out how to maneuver in the ways that we used to hold women kind of like more accountable. He's doing all the things that we would normally not consider something that we would allow men to get away with. But somehow, maybe the disarming ability to charm the public, and then his ability behind the scenes to negotiate payments. And some of those payments had to have gone through because otherwise you just like, he would never pay. He has this reputation for not paying, but he obviously pays the people that really count, I think. There are law firms that have sued him because he has not paid, but I'm not really sure, what are the other deals happening? Or are they deals of threats? Maybe people are afraid to move against him, so they'll do whatever just to stay in a safe sort of like job security kind of place, political security kind of place. I think the biggest revelation is finding out that all of the rules that have been set up that we thought were here to monitor the financial health of the United States were strictly for the minions of society, right? And that includes myself. I think that this is a similar structure to the military, because when you're in the military, there's certain things that you understand that are like messed up. And one of those things is that officers and enlisted are people that don't, that are in the military and didn't go through the officer candidate program where they would go to college and then also have like officer candidate school after. Some enlisted go to college, but they choose not to go into officer training. And when you have these two different statuses, there are different sets of rules that aren't supposed to be applied, but they are. And sometimes officers get a slap on the wrist for things that are extremely egregious that enlisted members would absolutely go to jail for 20 years or more for. So this is kind of the same corruption where you have certain levels of power can almost do no wrong. And I actually saw an article recently, was it from the Atlantic, about Jeff Bezos' billionaire retreat that just happened. And one of the things that journalist learned was that it's a place where everybody can get whatever they want and they don't have to worry about consequences. And they learn how to sort of operate, above the normal rules and accountability that we all operate in because they have the resources to do that. It was interesting. I just watched the last episode of The Boys, and I feel like it was a good reflection of what was going on. They even had like a Elon Musk-esque character, and I highly recommend you guys go watch that and then see if you pick up, what they're putting down on that. When they originally wrote that, they really didn't think it was supposed to be like satirical of what could happen if somebody went crazy in office. But now we're sort of seeing like a parallel story of what's going on in office now. And it is alarming. France has officially gone full investigation on Elon Musk. And I just read this morning that South Korea is also joining with the International Criminal Court. And if Benjamin Netanyahu enters South Korea, he will be arrested by the South Korean government. So we have this weird world order right now where world leaders we're a global economy now. So it's almost like this weird, jurisdictional thing. In the United States, we have state jurisdiction, federal jurisdiction. It's like we have ICC jurisdiction, and then we have these almost safe houses for Netanyahu in certain countries. And same with Donald Trump. I think there's some countries that are saying that they would arrest Donald Trump if they set foot in their nation. And so we'll see what happens in terms of what kind of accountability will occur among the world leaders at large if a new sort of more modern UN forms, or a new alliance with Asia, European alliances, EU versus the Asian Alliance, Asian Pacific Alliance. There's, because I've lived in Japan and I've also done so much business in China, and I understand how those economies work and how they get their labor force to produce and mobilize and execute. Fundamentally, if Asia actually got together with the EU and negotiated trade deals and economic deals that excluded the United States, they would probably be more profitable based on what I have personally experienced being there and living there. And I had always been aware of that while being there, that if they ever got, figured this out, or whatever it was that was keeping them from being able to negotiate major trade deals excluding the United States, is now possible because of everything with the Strait of Hormuz and all of the bad decisions that Trump is making globally. Everything that Donald Trump is doing now, he will not actually have to feel the effects of, because he's so old and unhealthy. He's going to be long gone from natural causes, most likely. And he won't have to suffer all of the economic crises that he's going to leave behind. His legacy is going to be one of repairing. He's going to be the American Hitler. He's just going to be known as the American Hitler. And it's still remarkable to me. I just saw that he has invested a bunch of money into Kura Sushi. Kura Sushi is a conveyor belt sushi chain from Japan that has done very well in America. Kura and Din Tai Fung are two Asian chains that have entered the American market and now outperform Olive Garden. So for every 6 Olive Gardens, it's 1 Din Tai Fung. can produce the same. And Kura was listed as one of the other upcoming ones. And I think there's probably Murugame Udon is probably another one. Again, as someone who has experienced a lot of Asian culture and food and for obviously many more years than the mainstream American market, it's not surprising to me now we have food culture infiltrating the American mainstream. China maxing is a thing, which is like learning how to do like Chinese cultural things. So you would take off your shoes in your house, you drink room temperature water instead of ice cold water, you drink more tea, you do acupuncture. There are reports that Gen Z is going to Eastern medicine and doing acupuncture instead of going to Western medicine because it's cheaper, and also they feel like the bedside manner is better because they get a one-on-one visit where the person, the acupuncture specialist, is asking them like, what is your life like? You know, versus just like reading a scan. And that actually hit home for me because I just recently it was open enrollment for our health insurance for the next year. And we were going to reduce our coverage because I wasn't really using all the coverage that we had. We just didn't need all this coverage. But then recently I actually hurt my knee. I dislocated my knee from walking around my house because apparently that's normal when you're old and a woman. And apparently I dislocated it for 2 months, didn't realize it, and then I ended up playing pickleball, hurt my back. So I had to go in for an orthopedic surgeon and got some x-rays. I had like 3 weeks left on my current health insurance, so I was going to all of a sudden realize like I needed to use all this stuff now and then find out, you know, what I would have to do for treatment. Turns out I have to do 6 weeks, twice a week of physical therapy, and I have arthritis in my L5. And in order to do that, I had to basically price out the difference of the change in my insurance. I ended up keeping my insurance because if I had changed it, I would have had to pay about like $3,000 out of pocket with the lower coverage. So instead, now I'm going to be paying $600 out of pocket with my current coverage. And luckily, I had 2 extra days left before it was going to finalize. So we figured it out right in time. But that made me understand, like, you know, acupuncture and Gen Z wanting to do that. And it made perfect sense to me because acupuncture is like $95 per visit for an hour. And like if I did not have this insurance, it was going to cost, one of the places physical therapy is $220 for the eval, and then after that is $110 every visit. The other place, the one that ends up being covered by my insurance, was if I had not had the insurance, was going to be $330 for the eval, and then $210 for each visit after that. So if you're like in Australia, you're hearing this, you're like, what the hell? That is a lot of money. It is a lot of money. It is. We shouldn't have to do that. I mean, my premium is like, it's not low. I mean, I feel like it's like, well, actually, it's lower than it used to be. I remember we used to pay like $1,200 a month per tax, but now it's something like $561. So it just got better. And that's the other thing is like, there's not a consistency between health insurance policies between employer to employer. You don't know what they're negotiating. You don't know why are they so different on what you get, what you have to pay into it? Why is the care constantly getting denied? Why is it that a person that took a 2-week module can deny a claim for insurance of life-saving treatment that was ordered by a doctor that has 20 years experience? This is the corrupt system they have. And somewhere, I think the lack of accountability that we've had in the entire system in America is why we see all of this right now. And I think it's time to recognize that we maybe got distracted by all this reality TV, all of the entertainment, all of the convenience, all of the Apple products. Like, I use all of that stuff too. I'm recording on an Apple product. I have a MacBook Pro. I have a lot of Apple subscriptions, iTunes, Apple Family, like Apple, like all those things, right? But I also recognize that when I'm talking about some of this stuff on this podcast, a lot of people have never heard any of these things. And I'm like, how have you not heard this? Because I am constantly inundated with this information. But maybe that's because I have the time. I have the freedom. I'm not like bogged down by a 9-to-5 office job And I remember what it was like to be in corporate. And I mean, at my peak, I had 3 corporate jobs at one time because I was trying to figure out, do I want to work in engineering? Do I want to work in law? Do I want to work in tech? And I was the admin director for 3 different companies. And I learned how hard it is to focus on everything else that's going on in the world when you're like busy trying to make a living, trying to put food on the table, trying to pay for college, trying to pay for extracurricular activities, trying to have a life, trying to have a social life, trying to have a private life. But the reality is, as we've gotten distracted by all these conveniences, we've actually lost sight of the things that are important, like the actual fundamental laws and foundation to democracy and, you know, participating and showing up. I'm having an existential crisis, I'm not gonna lie. I used to, before I moved from New York to California, I planned on running for city council in District 33 in New York City. And, well, technically Brooklyn, actually. But it was only because we moved that I was unable to fulfill that initial commitment that I had made to Vote, Run, Lead, which is why I became co-chair of Leadership Council, because Vote, Run, Lead didn't want to just lose me. And so when I came to California, I had the opportunity to stay with them and not feel like I was just abandoning the belief that I had that we need a better political system. We need more representation by women, and we need more good people to join in the actual process of government, and people that know how the system has worked, how they've overcome challenges despite the system not working properly, and how to make it better. And I happen to be one of those people that has experienced lots of things in the system. How to get WIC, how to get welfare when you're pregnant, when you have work lined up but you can't do it because contracts, schools, tests, whatever. And you're not just like somebody who is planning to stay on the system forever. This is somebody who is a productive member of society. And I think that the boogeyman that we've created, that is always this like lazy parasite, turns out to be all of the billionaires. That now the broligarchy does not believe in philanthropy. And I've noticed that significantly, because everybody that we used to vilify, their names are all over buildings in New York City for like art. The Rockefellers funded the Asia Society Museum, which is an organization that recognized me as an up-and-coming Asian American designers in New York City for fashion. And so as much as we have these like vilification of the Rockefellers and the Vanderbilts, like they gave a lot of money philanthropically. And that money still exists today, centuries later, in these institutions. And the broligarchy is proud to sort of walk away from philanthropy. And I mean, I'm a philanthropist and I don't make our household is nowhere near the broligarchy's household. And yet I've probably done more in philanthropy, in effort and work in the last decade than they've actually put time doing, in terms of actually like doing something that was not directly then going to benefit them personally. And I think that actually is a direct result of the MBA programs in the United States. Almost every single MBA program in the United States, every Ivy League program in the United States that has an MBA program does not have ethics as a class. I think that after 20 years of refusing to teach ethics in the MBA course in the business schools and also in the bachelor's degree level of business, this is the result of that, is you have people that are successful that don't feel like they owe anything back to society and have decided that they can take as much as they want until they suck it dry, like vampires. And they don't understand that they are creating a revolution, whether they understand that or not. All of these assassination attempts are the canary in the coal mine of a revolution forming, because the overly wealthy are so greedy that they don't recognize that they're creating an environment in which there is only one resolution, and it's their own fault. And, you know, if they don't recognize that, I think Luigi Mangione was a perfect example of that as well. And it's on them to become generous and gracious. They've gotten a lot of tax breaks. The Society of American Taxpayers has been the benefactors of all of these billionaires. And if they don't recognize it is time for them to give back. Now, Bezos has donated $100 million to Mom Donnie. That's something. Okay, that's something. But I think it's also like, I really need you to pay your employees better. I need them to not have to urinate inside water bottles. You're not going to launder your reputation with one donation. It has to be a change of like your own people that you employ need to let us know that things have gotten better. And without that, this is all performative and a tax break. So it's not really, if it hurts you and your bottom line, but it helps your employees, that's when I'll change my opinion about Jeff Bezos and Amazon. Until then, there's a lot that he needs to do. So, tell me what you think. Are we the only ones that think that Donald Trump may have won the accountability battle? Or is there a war in which we could still show that good can prevail? Give me a follow on Substack. Subscribe on Substack. You can subscribe for free. Paid subscribers will be getting merch gifts from me and other products that I find. I just sent out some cool silk line beanies. And if you want to follow me on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, follow on TikTok, Are We Only Pod, and feel free to message with any show ideas or any comments. You know, it's, I think it's time for us to organize, like seriously organize and demand serious change, because if we don't, the only option we'll have left is honestly to leave the country. And for the first time since the Great Depression, there are more people leaving the United States and moving than coming in. So, Donald Trump is the killer of people, economies, and freedom. What do you plan to do about it? Until next time.